Hi guys, welcome back. This is Matt Chat, episode 359, featuring a review of a game called Dungeon Rats. Great title! This is from Iron Tower Studios. They're the company that came out with a game not too long ago called Age of Decadence. I also reviewed that one. You can go back and look at that in the archives. A very difficult game, but the theme was trying to avoid combat as much as possible. So they flipped that on its head, and Dungeon Rats is practically nothing but combat, and that's a great thing. Really have a good time with this game. I want to share it with you, so without further ado, here is Dungeon Rats. And here we go, folks, with a game called Dungeon Rats. This is from Iron Tower Studios, a Canadian studio. Little indie outfit, turns out some great games. You might remember my review of their earlier game, Age of Decadence. This one, though, is more of the classic spirit dungeon crawl, a lot of tactical combat here. Remember, Age of Decadence, you tried to avoid combat at all costs. In this game, it's nothing but combat. Which I'm quite happy about. I love this sort of stuff. The name, by the way, Dungeon Rats, you might have thought maybe they saw some Matt Chat videos and thought they would call it this in a sort of obvious way of attracting my interest. Hey, that would have worked, actually. But actually, they called it that because of... on their website, they say it's because they named it after the 7th Heavy Armored Division of the Imperial Guards. Whatever that means, but coincidence perhaps that there's a 7th Armored Brigade in the United Kingdom. It's a tank division, as far as I can tell, and they have they call themselves Desert Rats. There's also green rats and jungle rats. Different kinds of rats have a really cool insignia. And I'm pretty sure that's where they got the name ultimately, but who knows? It's one of the many things I'd love to ask this developer about if I can ever get him on my show on the interview side. Anyway, we've got a lot of stuff to cover here, so let's get the game started. As usual, I like to start with a new game first, walk through some of the introductory content, then we'll take a look at some of the later stuff you run into. Of course, the first thing you have to decide is your level of pain. What's your pain tolerance for games? Really, all this difficulty selector does is determine how often the monsters will hit, how accurate they are. And if you put it on one of these harder modes, they'll be hitting you with some really tough attacks all the time. And I actually played it on Tough Bastard. Found that to be really challenging. I can't imagine what the murderous psychopath would be like. It'd probably really be ready to murder somebody if you tried to play it on that level. The Tough Bastard, to me, it feels right. Plenty. You're definitely going to have to get in here and micromanage and be really tactical and just get lucky sometimes to survive. But if you wanted to play on the nice guys, I'm sure that would still be challenging. I think with this Iron Tower Studios, what you can say is what they consider to be easy would be the normal difficulty, if not the tough difficulty of most RPGs out there now. And you can tell, too, if you get on the Steam discussion forums for this game, a lot of babies, a lot of whiners, wusses, basically. It's way too hard, I can't get past, and you guys need to soften up the bosses, and blah, blah, blah. Not every CRPG out there gives everybody a trophy, okay, guys? So go back to your juice boxes and let us play little Dungeon Rats. I mean, you're going to get your butt kicked. It's okay. It's good for you. It's just a game. Anyway, don't even get me started on that. All right, so we are looking pretty good there. Liking that guy. Now, over here, we've got skills and stats to consider. And this is definitely not a game where you want to be a jack-of-all-trades type. You really want to specialize, and there's a couple of key things that I want to point out to you. Save you a little bit of pain. One of the things is, you might remember this too from Age of Decadence. The choice of weapons is going to depend a lot on the stats, or vice versa. So, for example, the swords is more of a dexterity thing, and the axe is more of a strength thing. Same thing with the hammer. So you really want to keep that in mind. You'll get a better effect if you have a sword with a decent dex. Same thing with axe and strength. But you also have to mitigate a little bit there, because if you notice up at the top, if I just stick with that 4 strength, then I'm going to take a 20% damage debuff, or not a bonus at all, really, a penalty, I suppose. So I probably want to bump that up a little bit anyway, but I really want to make sure my dexterity is up good and high. And also, I'd say for this game, Constitution's even more important than you might think. Even if you do plan to stay in the back with a crossbow or whatever, you are going to get stuff thrown your way occasionally, and it's nice to be able to take a hit. And also accuracy, of course, another biggie. If you there's nothing more frustrating than just continuously missing everything. So I would at least get that up past that penalty phase. I think that's 4 or 5. See, there got to get to 6 strength to get rid of that damage penalty, and I think the yeah, there you can see how many hit points you get with the Constitution. And I've played this game for about 10 hours, and I never got to a point where you got any increase in these stats. So I don't know if I just haven't quite gotten there yet, or maybe certain levels you get more stats, or maybe you just stuck with this permanently. I don't know. And like I say, I never got the chance to do anything about them, so I think you definitely, if it's your first time playing, don't worry about it. You know, just get in there and screw up a few times, come back, create a new character, right? But that said, if you want to have any chance of success, you really will have to spend some time with these stats and skills, learn how they work together. A lot of nice complementary effects you can get if you're willing to sit here and tinker for a while. And quite honestly, if you're not willing to do that, if that doesn't float your boat, this probably isn't the right game for you anyway, right? So take that for what it is. I will say this though, the charisma, you know, in most games, charisma is just kind of useless, and I thought, well, Dungeon Rats, you know, emphasis on combat, who cares about charisma, right? But in this game, it's actually absolutely critical, because you can see what it does there is control how many followers you get. And let me tell you, having a 4-character party is a lot easier than just one person or 2 people. I tried to play the game with just 2 people in my party, and just that wasn't happening. Your mileage may vary. Maybe you're good enough where you can pull that off, but I found that I'd have any chance of success at all, I needed a full party. So I went ahead and put enough points into charisma to get up to 3. And even that's not enough to get you past some of the charisma checks in the game. But anyway, it'll make life bearable for you. Alright, so there we go. Character created. We're going in. Now, considering this game is $8, you really shouldn't expect a lot of voice acting and full 3D glorious cutscenes and the like. And again, if that's the sort of thing that turns you on and that's really important to you, you probably want to move on. I don't really care about that stuff. And there's enough of a story here to sort of provide some context. You know, we're in the bottom of a dungeon, fighting our way up. There's some evil people in between us and escape, and some gangs to deal with. But you probably won't see a novelization or a movie based on this game anytime soon. It's got all the subtlety of something like Escape from Los Angeles or Escape from New York. That's kind of what it reminded me of in terms of a story. Again, I don't play games for story. If I want a story, I read a book or watch a movie. I might watch Escape from New York now that I'm thinking about it. I kind of like that movie. Anyway, we got a lot of rough types here. Let's see, Barca. All right, so this is a kind of sleazebag, scumbag type. Sleazeball, scumbag, sleazeball. Anyway, the guy's not very trustworthy, but he will hook us up with a couple of initial quests here. And I gotta say, another thing you might not like about the game, it is fairly linear. I think there's a couple spots where you can go somewhere you're not supposed to go yet or whatever, but for the most part, we're going to be following a linear trajectory. Again, not something that bothers me all that much. Yeah, I kind of like the open world games too, but there's something to be said for this setup too. You know, this is a game you can realistically expect to finish. You know, point A to point B. There's not a whole lot of busy work, not a lot of content in there that just feels like they put it in to kind of drag out the gameplay. It's really kind of short and sweet, and I find that a refreshing change. Again, you know, if you want an open world, there's lots of games out there like that to play. We don't really need another one when it's almost saturated as it is. So I kind of like to see something like this especially for those of us with, full-time jobs and families and whatnot. You might not have thousands and thousands of hours to spend building up a character and a garrison and a stronghold and courting a relationship and all that. You don't really need to have all that to have a good experience. And this game, it's got the alchemy and the crafting in there. So it's not just total hack and slash all the way through, but I like that it doesn't get bogged down. Sometimes I feel like a lot of these modern CRPGs are trying to be like the equivalent of that all-you-can-eat buffet, where all the food basically sucks, and it's probably going to give you a severe diarrhea when you're done. But you're like, I hate the food, it tastes terrible, but there's so many options, as if just having so many options compensates for the crappy quality of each option, right? So I'd much rather have a game like this that was, a little more toned down, a little less ambitious than that, if you even call it ambitious, I don't know. And really get the core gameplay experience right, which is right here. This is what the game is really all about. We have turn-based tactical combat, and again, if you just want to click, 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 rush through this and move on to the next battle, not the game for you. You really have to slow down, and I think the interface is a little cumbersome, really. It sort of resists being able to quickly click through your options, which at first that kind of annoyed me, but now I'm almost wondering if maybe that was just by design, just to kind of say, hey, are you sure you want to do this regular attack and this fast attack? Consider some of these other kinds of attacks you can do and the odds. So if you're looking there, if I do this fast attack, 4 action points, regular 5, you see they cost different action points, and if you hover over there, you can actually see the math there, the formulas for success and what kind of what they call a passive effect you might get with some of these. You can do some damage to their armor with some attacks, or slow them down, take some of their AP away, action points. I'm going to just assume, if you're watching this show, this is what, Matt Chat 359, I'm guessing you're pretty familiar with the basic RPG mechanics and action points and whatnot. It's a lot of this is pretty standard stuff. There are a couple of interesting wrinkles to it. One is that, as far as I can tell, you can't save your action points. There's no sort of a guard mode, anything like that. Now, I could be wrong about this, but at least in my experience, you're better off trying to use up all the action points. Even if it's just chucking a rock to get rid of those last 2, or maybe move into position a little bit. You might be trying to think a couple moves ahead. Can you move around a little bit, get into a slightly better position for the next round? Little considerations like that. Really, positioning is really key in this game, as it should be in a good role-playing game. So you're going to get a lot better odds if you're attacking the guy's rear, and he's not, he doesn't have a shield up in front of you, or can't even really see you back there. So you're going to get much better to hit chance than if you're right squared off in front of him with his shield in your face. So it's that's kind of nice, and also the some of these weapons, like that guy's hammer, you can see how big that hammer is, how much reach it has. So you can attack diagonally, and if you go the spear option, you can actually get even more reach. And what's more, they actually can take some damage just coming up on you. You kind of a little jab at them as they come into range, and that can actually be pretty decisive. I think if I create another character after this, I'll probably try the spear, be a spearman. Just try that out. Could be fun. And one thing you might have noticed too, and this I'm less happy about, they do drop a lot of F-bombs and just a lot of cursing in this game. I guess some people argue that makes it more realistic or whatever. And if that thing does, my position on that is it either doesn't bother you, or it does bother you, and you wouldn't want to play the game or let your kids play it for that reason. So that's the kind of, I sort of wonder, like, why is it even in there? I'm not sure what it really adds, but I don't want the game to be censored either. But I think if I were designing a game like this, I'd probably just put in a little option there. Like on the difficulty screen, you could just have, cursing, yes or no, a little checkbox. I mean, it'd be more realistic if you had these guys on the ground here just naked instead of wearing briefs. But does anybody want to see that? I don't want to see that. I'm perfectly happy for that to be covered. And, anyway. Let's see what we got here. Shovels and stone hammers. I'll say that this just went right over my head the first few times I played it, but you notice that some items have a little scroll, like a little parchment thing in the lower right corner. It's a little sort of symbol. And that means that there's a schematic that you can learn from that. And you don't have to find schematics. You just find the item, and it's got that little scroll. You can right-click on it, and then you'll learn how to make it here in the schematic screen. And the cool thing about that is you can add, depending on your crafting score, and later on you pick up this blacksmith guy who's got a really high crafting score. You can add all kinds of cool buffs to it, so you end up being able to make some lot better stuff than you can just find. And that's pretty cool. It gives you a reason to put points into that crafting skill. See there, they call them techniques. Now the one thing about this I didn't like is, you only get to create your one character. And those points are pretty precious, and you probably don't want to be spending them on alchemy and crafting. But you might not, especially if it's your first time playing, you don't know who these other characters are that you're going to find later. So you might be wondering, well, should I just, put a couple points on alchemy on this guy? And then you sort of waste those, right? Because then you find a guy that's already got like a 6 score for his alchemy. There's just little sort of nitpicky things like that. I don't really know how they could have avoided it. But I guess it's just something you learn. Maybe that's one of the benefits of replaying the game. You'd know, probably don't want to put like 6 points in alchemy because I'm going to get this alchemist later. But it's very frustrating, especially on the harder difficulty levels because, man, if you'd only would have known that, you could have saved yourself a lot of pain, right? And put those points into better dodging or blocking or just attacks. But I think maybe that's the part of the design of the game too. I noticed that I'm the kind of guy that always wants to keep my whole party alive. If somebody dies, even if it's somebody I don't particularly like, I always want to reload it. I don't know what it is. I just hate going on with dead party members. But it seems like the designer kind of wanted you to do that because there's plenty of NPCs you can add later on, and some of the ones you find later are much better than this crew you start out with. So I guess it just depends on your sort of role-playing style. Do you not mind letting people die and getting some new ones later on, or what? But I guess I could put it this way. If this guy, the crossbowman that just joined my party, died, or anybody dies, it's not really that huge of a deal. If you want, you could just continue to play. There'll be some more NPCs you can add later on. Also, you might have noticed that I don't have armor on my main guy there, and that's because the blocking and dodging and armor is a little different than most games. You think classic AD&D, something like a Pool of Radiance, for example. You wanted on your tank characters to have the shield, the plate armor, the full gamut. Heavier the better. In this game, though, its dodge almost works against armor. So there's this thing called DR, damage resistance. And the way that works is if you've got a, let's say, 2 DR on a chess piece, if you get hit for 5 points of damage, then you'll only take 3. It takes two of those damage points away. And then you have something they call damage hardness, like weapon hardness or armor hardness. And that is basically how often it's going to get damaged or what it takes to damage that piece of gear. So you notice there, armor damaged. So I got some reduction that way. And so ideally you'd have really hard armor with high damage resistance. The problem is most of the armor like that's going to have an armor penalty on it. And the higher that armor penalty is, the less effective your dodge and block are going to be. So it's really kind of a rock, paper, scissors approach. You can have no armor on, but if you've got a high dexterity, and you can and a high dodge score, then you'll just dodge. You won't take any damage. Same thing with block. If you're really strong, and again, you don't have any armor on, but you have a shield, you can easily get that shield up to block the blow. And then if you don't mind getting hit, you could just stack the damage resistance. So even if you do get hit, you won't really take that much damage. So it just sort of, again, depends on your play style. Not really sure how much logical sense it makes to be set up that way. You know, I don't care how heavy a chest piece I have on. I could just lift up my arm and get that shield up. But, you know, they don't want you just to create this indestructible character, I suppose. And, you know, I guess it just depends on what you want, how you want to play. I'm not even going to really bother with the blocking on this guy. I decided I wanted to do the dodging instead. But if you do have this shield on or a helmet on, you get certain benefits. For one thing, you can do the shield slam, but you also get some protection from critical strikes. The helmet's sort of similar thing. They actually have a separate damage reduction for the helmets. So if somebody does an aim blow for your head and you have a helmet on, then you can get some damage resistance just from that. But the only problem with most of the helmets will have a damage or a penalty to your hit chance. So if you're not hitting anything, you might want to check that helmet, make sure you don't have this one of those old school sort of visor like things on where you can barely see. And obviously you don't want that on an archer. And oh yes, the repairing of the armor. So one thing I got into the habit of doing every battle, make sure to check to see if anything got damaged, because the last thing you want to do is get into a battle with your armor falling off. It loses a lot of its effectiveness that way. And you'll also need to keep around a lot of materials, wood and leather bits and iron bits, you know, depending on what your armor and stuff's made out of, or you won't be able to repair it. One cool thing though, you can decompose or tear down stuff you don't need. So that's a very nice feature. I wish all games had that. I see no reason that they shouldn't. It makes a lot of sense. And you can turn around and make stuff with it. So for example, arrows, you know, those are pretty easy to make. It's easy to make most of the gear you need. I never had a problem with not having enough materials. Now again, I haven't played all the way through the game. I don't know, once you get past the iron levels, maybe there's a point where it really starts to get hard to find materials, but hopefully by that point I won't need it so badly. So you can see some of the stuff I can make. There's the regular missile made out of bronze. And if you have your crafting skill up, or you have a blacksmith in the party, then you got those techniques you can apply. So it's a really cool system. I think it's there's enough complexity there to kind of keep you staring at it for a while, thinking about trade-offs and is it worth your philosophy might be, well, no matter how good of a dodger or a blocker you are, occasionally they're going to hit. You're going to get hit. So when that happens, do you want to have a little damage resistance just to kind of soften that a little bit? You know, these guys, they don't have a whole lot of health points. So it's really a factor. And I'll tell you something else that really starts to wear you down is all the damn poison in this game. Man, poison, 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 poison! Man, you'd think Brett Michaels wrote that damn game. I mean, maybe he's one of the playtesters or something. I don't know, but it's a constant pain. And you really have to watch it too, because you might... many battles, I've gotten all the way to the end, and just to be killed off in that last blow by poison. Some of the monsters and arrows and weapons, anything can be poisoned, so you just never know. And maybe that would be some place where a high constitution would make a difference, but you can also brew up some alchemy remedies and waste a point on that. Even with those, sometimes I was still getting poison, so... I don't know what it is with these CRPG designers and their love of flippin' poison. I mean, do you remember Might and Magic 6 and those damn spiders in that, what was it, the temple? Like right at the start of the game, you kept having to run all the way back to town to try to get that poison off, or curses, things of that sort. I hate those. But it's here. It is what it is, I guess. I just wish every damn thing wouldn't poison you. You should get immune to it. I feel like after so many poisonings, you'd be like the guy from The Princess Bride. Just have an immunity built up to it. That's actually not a bad idea. Yeah, put that mechanic in the game. So if you keep encountering the same kind of poison and surviving, maybe you build up a little immunity to it. It doesn't even phase you after a while. That'd be pretty cool. All right, anyway, looking at this like a bunch of junk. I don't know you know, I had to stop playing at some point to make this video. You guys wanted a video, but I was never able to find a store. It seems a little weird that there's not a store somewhere, and I haven't looked at any guides or walkthroughs. But I gotten pretty far, you know, well past this into like the 3rd or 4th camp. Got all the way to past the dredgers and into the next set of gang, the next big gang, and still no store. So some of these items, you know, they start to build up in your inventory, and I guess there's a stash you can put them in. Not have to carry them around, but I'm really curious if at some point, you know, because a lot of the stuff mentions merchants, or you might be able to sell this, etc. But never found anybody to sell anything to. So what's up with that? Yeah, here's our stash, and we can put these items here. I wish I knew, because if I knew that you couldn't sell anything, I could just junk some of this junk. You can't decompose these items for some reason, and so they just sit there cluttering up your inventory. Hopefully, though, there'll be a store at some point. Maybe they'll add one later. I don't know. Also, you notice I'm keeping that pickaxe around because there's some ore and things sticking out of the walls, little ore veins, and if you don't have the pickaxe, you won't be able to get it. Now, I will say that they're very nice guys at Iron Tower Studios. In a lot of ways, they're mean, but they actually tend to put pickaxes around the ore. So a couple times I've forgotten it, and if there was a new one there I could just pick up. I don't know about the shovel. I don't know if you find little holes eventually that you can dig up for treasure. Maybe there's little hidden treasures, holes that I just haven't noticed yet. But I'm keeping that shovel because I don't want, if I ever do find the damn thing, I don't want it to say, oh, you don't have a shovel. If only you had the shovel. So I got that damn shovel. It's going to stay with me. Maybe I'll dig my grave with it. Huh? Keep it around for that purpose. All right, and there's some more of those NPCs. And, you know, these guys are pretty worthless. This Cyrus guy, oh man, you know, it's better than just having an empty slot in your party, but you're going to find somebody way better. And, you know, as I said before, I don't know if you can ever raise those stats. So if you get stuck with somebody that's just, you know, really crummy stats, you know, I guess if you're heartless, you could just say, well, if he dies, right? But it's going to be a struggle keeping him alive. What has he got? I'm not sure how many. He's only got 40 hit points. For some reason, he was just a real pain, this Cyrus guy, man. And I had the spearman before, and it was really killing me because he was doing so much damage with that spear. He was great, but, you know, just any little hit come his way, he puts his face like right in front of the fist, goes down. And I kept having to reload. I was glad to get rid of him, but you know, I wish they would have just let you create your whole party. You know, I get it. They want you to have some NPCs so they can create some little dialogues and some little character backgrounds and whatever. Fine, but just let me create my own party. Please, just let me create my own party, please. You know, I will, you know, you could have a little blank, you know, some of those old games will actually give you a little screen where you could type in your own story. You know, I always wondered what kind of person did that. You know, I don't want to make fun of anybody. I kind of do, but, you know, I don't want to make fun of anybody that, like, you know, really sat down and wrote like a extensive story for these. For their character in these games, you know, but you know, not everybody's like me. I get it, but I would appreciate at least having the option to just create my own guys. All right, so you can see my crossbowman there really doing a great job. Later on, you can get a woman in your party, a woman crossbowman with some other skills, and she's really badass. So as soon as you get the option, I would swap out old Cyrus or Silas or whoever you end up with and get her. And, you know, there's a couple of characters you'll meet here and there that are much better than the starting crew. And don't feel bad if you don't want to kill them. You don't have to let them die. I mean, if you dismiss them, they'll just hang around your camp so you can pick them up later, kind of like in Knights of the Old Republic, games like that. Now, I'm not sure if... maybe you guys can tell me this. So if you have a character that's just sitting there in camp, does he or she level up eventually just sitting in camp, or do you have to have him in the party for that to happen? The reason that's a big deal is because the blacksmith, you eventually get a blacksmith, and it'd be great if his blacksmithing skill would keep going up, but I don't know. You know, I played for a while and kept going back to him, and I put him in the party to see if he had some new skills, and he didn't. So it makes me think that they actually have to be here in the party for that to happen. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. Maybe they can fix it so that when he uses his blacksmithing, the skills go up that way. But it looks like it's not the case. I see there's some people here on the Steam discussion forums suggesting something like that. But not in the game. If it's a really big deal to you, I guess you could just stick the blacksmith in the party for a while, or maybe just commit to him as one of your characters. But I tell you, I really like the having those crossbowmen. I was getting most of my kills from ranged attacks, especially once you start to get those barbed arrows and the armor piercing, all of that good stuff, and you get somebody with, they got a lot of dexterity, so they could put out 2, maybe 3 shots. I really do a lot of damage. I mean, I was killing things before they even got close to me, just with my ranged attacks. So I'm just showing you some alchemy here. You can see you need 2 points to create your own poison, and once you can do that, again, I never had a problem with not enough mats. Always had plenty of materials, so you could have plenty of poison. Pretty much, there's that poison again. You could just poison everything and get a few points that way. And you can also find sharpening stones, so it's always worth kind of keeping an eye on that. See if there's anything you can do, and also you can load your crossbows on this screen here. So before you get into combat, this is the little placement screen where you decide where you want to put your guys. I'd say I really like this. You don't see, every battle, I guess, is an ambush. You're just kind of thrust into battle. So this is a nice way to kind of take the sting out of that. I noticed there's one battle in particular where you don't get the option. One of your characters is kind of already positioned. I won't spoil that for you. Makes sense given the story. There's that word again. But I like being able to position your guys. I'm pretty sure this was easier for the developer. I was thinking about doing my own RPG at some point. And this question had come up of, how do you figure out where the party is, when you get to this screen, right? Do you want to just have the order they sort of just floundered in? Because that would be, if that's the case, then you'd have to really sit there and micromanage their movement, their path finding and all that. It would get really cumbersome. So I think this is, the more I think about it, the more sense it makes. Just let the players decide, how they want to be lined up. And it gives them a little bit of an advantage, I guess, because the monsters, they're already in position. So you just choose where you want your guys to be, and I guess the monsters just patiently wait for you to do that. You could compare this kind of setup to something like, I don't know, Baldur's Gate, where you can sort of see the monsters coming at you, versus this sort of ambush screen where the monsters just suddenly appear. You don't really see them out there until it's too late. So if you're going to do it that way, I like to be able to position my guys. That takes a lot of that would be just so annoying, And I have played games like that where you just would suddenly be in battle and your guys would be in very, horrible positions, and you'd have to waste points trying to get them out of danger. Your wizards. Remember old Pool of Radiance would do that to you sometimes, and you'd be like, man, I would have never put my wizard there. Right next to the big baddie, And I guess the alternative would be something like XCOM, where pretty much the whole game would be turn-based. You wouldn't have this sort of mode, exploration mode. So this is the kind of thing you probably haven't ever really even thought about unless you've sat down and tried to design something like this yourself, or played enough of these games where you know that there's other options available, and then think about what you like better. So the short of that is, I think this is a pretty well done. If you want to have that free exploration mode, then you have to decide, well, how are you going to handle the encounters? So they opted for the non-random sort of ambush thing, but then they compensated for that by letting you position your guys however you want them. So yeah, it's just interesting to me to think about that. Yeah, see, there you go. So you just walked in here, and once again, you're surprised by ants. They had to come up with so many different ways to basically say, oh, you had no idea you were about to get into combat. Oh, I had to break out the old thesaurus for that one. Okay, there we go. You can see the sort of obstacles in the path here. It's not quite clear to me whether I can shoot over that sort of smaller, what is that, stalagmite or stalactite? Hey, Matt, you're an English professor, you don't even know. Yes, I do. That little schleck there in the middle there. Can I shoot over that? I don't know. I'll tell you what, though. Your archers will shoot your own guys. Man, that happens a lot. So whenever possible, you probably don't want to be shooting a crossbow bolt in between or around. I might say you got a 90% chance of making the shot, but then your own guy gets it in the back and it's poisoned. Of course it's poisoned, right? So sometimes I guess it's a good thing that dexterity is such a big deal for archers, because you probably already have plenty of action points, and it's not that big a deal to move a little bit to try to get a better shot. Definitely worth it if you think you might accidentally hit your own guy in the back. Oh, he's still bleeding. Now, there are things you can do. Like I said, there's little vial elixir things you can take in combat to stop the poison. You also have one to stop bleeding. Bleeding, for me, wasn't nearly as problematic as the poison, but maybe your mileage may vary with that. Now, also, you'll notice that the little scrolling damage counter thing there would say something like 8, and then there's a 2, 7 and a 2, and the little 2 has a brown shield sort of thing on the background behind it. So that's letting you know how much damage was absorbed by the thing's armor. So sometimes you might do 7 points of damage, but all of that gets absorbed. So in that case, you need to switch to a more powerful attack, or maybe sometimes you have attacks that will actually lower armor. So there's special bolts, for example, and sometimes like the hammer in particular has some moves that will lower armor or damage resistance. So something else to keep in mind. You always want to be paying attention in this game to what's actually going on. Are your guys doing damage? Is a lot of the damage being absorbed? Are you using the right kind of bolt? Maybe there's another kind of attack you should be using. So you really have to pay attention to what you're doing the whole time you're playing, which is something I like. I still can't get in that damn anthole. I thought with this guy I would, since he has a higher dexterity, but I guess you really have to have a high dex. Alright, go ahead and get some more of this ore. I want to skip ahead a little bit here. I'll show you the first boss fight with the queen ant, and then I'll wrap up with a little bit of the later game. So remember, old Barca sent us in here to try to do something about this ant infestation. So worked my way over here to this little crawl space and toss in the bomb, close up the tunnel. But we're still going to be dealing with a really nasty encounter. This isn't so bad. There's a couple of fights, a little sequence of fights in particular. If you play, you'll know which ones I'm talking about. There's this little lady keeps popping out and throwing arrows and bombs and stuff at you, and man, that would really test your patience as well as your mettle. This one, though, it's a good challenge. I do have to admit, the first time I got to this point, I was really worried because my guys are just barely surviving those little scraps with just a couple of these ants, and then suddenly we're up against the fire ant queen. I wonder what the fire ants are where you guys live. And I grew up in the deep south, Louisiana, and these guys are everywhere. A little bit smaller than this, but just about as mean, man. You were just walking around the yard not really paying attention, you might have a whole little colony of them going up your leg, and let's just put it this way, they call them fire ants for a reason. Alright, there we go. I was hoping that she would do her little trick here. I think I might actually kill her before She does her little special move. Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. I will say this, though. You definitely learn as you play this game, and after you've created 2 or 3 characters and learn more about how the stats and the skills work, you'll do a lot better than when you just start out. So the game's really, really tough for you. You know, don't feel too bad about just starting over. That's, you know, another perk of a game like this that doesn't sit there and belabor you with all these cutscenes and long drawn out dialogues and all, just, you know, a bunch of stuff you don't really want to see over and over again. A game like this, you know, if I were just to say, oh, to hell with it, I'll create a new guy and, you know, get back up to this point I'm at now, wouldn't really take that long. And that's really expedited too by something I wish that every game like this would have, especially a turn-based game. You'll notice I've cranked up the animation and the combat speed. So these guys are really moving at a nice clip here, and I'll have to sit there waiting, you know, 30 seconds for them to slowly, you know, amble into position, slowly rotate, do some stupid attack animation over and over and over and over, and just, you know, drag the whole thing out for 15-20 minutes. I hate that. And basically this game just gives you a slider. You decide. I could even have it a lot faster than this if I wanted, but I think this is a decent speed. But if I wanted to, I could probably, I think it goes up to 4x maybe. I think this might be, he took a crossbow to the back. And of course it was poisoned. But anyway, I think this makes this a lot more bearable. A lot of the times these turn-based games can get really tedious, especially if you're fighting the same kind of monsters over and over again, and they have this, everything's just dragging, you know, it's taking you so long sitting there waiting for each, you know, mob to make its move and play the same animation over and over again. This gets unbearable. So the lesson there, doesn't cost you much to put this in, right? Learn a new schematic. Put in the option, the little slider bar, double, triple, quadruple the speed of those animations, or maybe just cut them out entirely if you want, but definitely have a way to speed them up. That makes it all the pain go away, and you can just you know, focus on what you want to focus on. You know, I think the problem is the developers, they're proud of those animations, right? You know, they spend a lot of money and spend a lot of time creating those, and my God, I want you to sit there and stare at that ant, you know, raising up and thrusting out its jaw. I want you to see that every time. You got to think about the player. You know, you got to put the ego aside. Think about what the player wants. Right. Double speed. All right, so I think that's good. You saw a pretty good chunk of this. Let's look at that later game a little bit, and we'll call it a day. All right, so this is a pretty good fight. As you can see, I've come a long ways. I've still got some of the original party members, but I have a really great, what's her name, Roxana. Awesome character. And she's a, you know, I don't want to spoil it for you, but man, when you finally have the option to get her in your party, you don't know if you want to add her or kill her, just for just for your own satisfaction. But if you do add her to the party, she's a really great asset. Really good on the crossbow, and she's, you know, good with a dagger too. And I think she's even got some other skills. So yeah, great character to have. And I'm hoping, I think I've also replaced, yeah, the what's his name, Ismail. Call me Ismail, something like that. Yeah, Ismail. I'm certain that has nothing to do with old Herman Melville. Anyway, this is a swordsman with a high alchemy, from what I was telling you earlier. You might not want to put all those alchemy points into your guy, because you know you only have so many points to go around, right? Now you can see these AI are getting a little smarter now. They actually put that net over me. I think that pretty much eliminates my defense. So that's not good. But hopefully I'll be able to work around this. I will say this, there was never a battle in this game that didn't have me, you know, on the edge of my seat. There's none I was ever able just to sort of mindlessly click through. You're like, oh, there's another one, click, you know, hurry up and get this over. No. This was every battle I really had to be careful. And sometimes I thought I had it in the bag, you know, and then just a couple of bad rolls and one of my guys is dead. I don't want to deal with that, so I have to reload. One thing I will say about this damn poison, I hate to keep going on about it, but But at least, you know, when you're done with the fight, if you can end the fight before your guy dies of poison, it automatically at the end of the battle, all the poison goes away. If your armor's damaged, it's still damaged. You have to fix that, but at least you don't have to sit there worrying about, oh my god, I got to get rid of that poison. Remember, what was it, Baldur's Gate, and you'd still be taking damage even after the thing was dead, and you had to quickly cure, and just hope you could do that before it was too late. You know, I remember several games of that, and actually defeating a really hard boss or something, and then having to reload again because I forgot to cure the poison. Now, one thing I wish it did that it didn't do, it doesn't heal your guys back up after a battle, so you still have to go in and at the start of the game you seem to have plenty of rations, so you can take care of them that way. But I don't know if at some point you're able to make rations or at least find a more reliable supply. But I ran out of those pretty early on and had to keep making potions and applying the potions. Not a huge deal, but you know, if you're going to go to this much trouble with, you know, if you notice sometimes the monsters will give you some rations. It would be kind of cool if they could forage more, like little ponds, you know, grab some fish or something. You know, just ways to get more rations and instead of having to brew up all the potions all the time. You know, I've actually collected enough stuff here that my weight limit has been reached. I need to get rid of some items, maybe decompose a few things. I try to get it under control. Also, not forgetting, you don't want to forget to go ahead and learn the schematics if you can before you decompose something. You know, lots of things there I can get rid of. But anyway, all in all, I gotta say, I'm really having a good time with Dungeon Rats. It's my kind of game. You know, it's really got its focus on the turn-based combat. One thing I've noticed, and I feel pretty terrible about it, I've yet to fight an actual rat. You know, I don't know what's up with that. I fought fire ants, I fought scorpions, I fought some kind of centipede-looking thing. Yet to fight a rat. You know, I'm hoping that they're saving those maybe for one of the very last parts of the game, maybe the sort of the dessert or the sort of the climax of the game. You know, we can hold out hope, right? But surely they didn't make a game called Dungeon Rats and then not put any rats in there. I'd hate for that to be true. That would just ruin my year. You know, I don't know what it's like where you guys are. It's like everybody's going on and on and on and on about, oh, this damned election, right? So, oh, it's those terrible things. I'm like, you know, I care less about that than I do the fact that a game called Dungeon Rats might not have any rats in it. You know, get your priorities straight, people. Get your priorities straight. anyway, let's go ahead and rate this game. So let's see, graphics. Let's see, a scale of 1 to 5. I'd say this is you know, I don't know what you'd expect for $8. This looks fine to me. You know, I can tell what everything is. It looks great to me, to be honest with you. Yeah, could they be better? Sure, whatever that means. But I'd be fine going 3, 4 out of 5 on those. You know, I didn't see anything that just made my jaw drop with the beautiful splendor of a level or anything like that. But definitely doesn't look bad. So somewhere between 3 or 4 for that. Let's see. Music and sound. I would say, again, I guess it doesn't really call attention to itself. The sound effects are all nice. Music is pleasant enough. It doesn't really get your attention, doesn't distract you. On the other hand, there's not any of those really memorable ditties. Remember I always think about the Diablo game and that awesome song that plays right at the beginning when you're wandering around, was it the village, or Tristram? Any of that little starting village. You know what I'm talking about, that little guitar piece. Love that little piece of music. The music here is pretty good too. Lots of, I guess, sort of stringed instruments. Kind of got a vaguely sort of, I don't know, maybe, what would you call that, sort of Middle Eastern-like flavor to it. Doesn't sound bad. You know, to tell you the truth, it's kind of the first time I've really paid attention to it. You tend to get kind of engrossed in the combat, not really be sitting there listening to the music, but I guess it gets the job done. I'd go maybe 3 out of 5 on it too. You're probably not going to want to download it and listen to it all day while you're at work or something, but it's better than just endless sort of droning. What do they call that? Ambient. You definitely have some music here. It just doesn't really stand out. So moving on to story and characters, dialogue, that sort of thing. Again, definitely more of a gets the job done sort of score, more than anything really impressive. I mean, this is a storyline we've seen before in RPGs, this idea of escaping from a prison. You know, there's just Legend of, Fall of the Dungeon Guardians that came out not too long ago. But pretty much same setup. You know, it's a fairly common idea, this escape from a prison. The characters seem fairly interesting. I like the characters that I find. It's just not, you wouldn't play something like this because you were really into the story of it. So again, maybe 2, 3 out of 5 would work for that. It's not bad, just not really the appeal. So that brings us to gameplay, and that's where I think the game really shines. Assuming that you like, really micromanaged, tactical turn-based combat. Every roll, every turn, significant. You're dying a lot, you're reloading a lot, you're trying out different strategies. You're really getting immersed in that stuff. You love statistics and formulas. If that sort of thing floats your boat, you're really going to have a good time. And this will be $8 very well spent. So, I don't know if I'd go all the way to 5 on it. But, limiting it to this type of game, I would definitely put it at a solid 4. At least. So I guess all in all, I'm feeling somewhere between 3 and a 4, or 3 or 4 out of 5 on this one. It's got a lot of things I really like. That said, it's obviously it's not the next Baldur's Gate. I mean, come on. It's kind of a I don't know. It almost feels like maybe a little side project or sort of a quick and dirty little dungeon crawl. From this team. I guess they wanted to do something a lot different than their Age of Decadence outing. And this came out, I remember it was announced and it seemed like it was actually released the next week after. It felt like, I guess more time went on than that. So I guess what it lacks though in terms of scope and size, I guess, it makes up for just in doing what it does best, which is this, exactly what you're looking at here. A really intense turn-based combat. If that's the kind of thing you like, and that's what you're buying this for, I think you will consider $8 very well spent. Otherwise, you might just want to wait for one of these bigger budget games to come out. I don't know how long it's going to be, but of course Wasteland 3 is in production, and eventually that Tides of Numenera game is going to be out, and I'm sure either one of those would have a lot more story to it than this. If, on the other hand, you just want to blow off some steam, get in some turn-based combats, see if you can have the patience, wherewithal, or mathematical genius to get all the way through this thing, especially at some of those harder difficulty levels, I think you'd really enjoy this, and I know I definitely have. So there you have it, folks. Dungeon Rats. If nothing else, you should buy it just because it has such a great name. As always, I would really like to hear your guys' thoughts on it. If you've played it, what do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Why or why not? I always love to read those discussions. And if you know this developer, what's his name? Vince or Vincent? Let him know. I want to get him on the show. He seems to be kind of hard to reach. I don't know what's up with that. Anyway, it'd be fun to have him on to talk about this game and Age of Decadence. I think they're working on a space game. After this one, or maybe in between, I don't know. Anyway, I'll let it go here, and thank you for watching. And that's all for this week's episode. Hope all you guys enjoy that. Go pick up Dungeon Rats. It's only $8 on Steam. Not really sure what else it's available on GOG or whatever. But I'll make sure in the show notes to link to those various sites. But anyway, I think it's a great deal. But let me know what you think. As always, I want to thank you very much for your support of this show. would not be possible without your help. So thanks so much. Remember, all I ask is $1 a show. It takes about 5 seconds to set that up on Patreon. And then you can become an official Ratron, a supporter of this show, keeping these episodes coming, keeping interviews coming. And let me tell you, there is so much great stuff in the pipe. You're going to be really proud. You're really going to be happy that you supported the show. So thank you again. It really means a lot to me. And remember, too, you can always support the show just by telling some friends about it, posting about it on Facebook, Twitter, all that good stuff. I see that and really appreciate it. So thank you. All right. What about that news from the Matt Cave? Oh, have I got some news for you. Let's start off here. I'll save the best one for last. Tom wrote in about this game, SEUM, S-E-U-M. This is Speedrunners from Hell. It's the world's only competitive heavy metal first-person platformer. Slice every last millisecond as you race and blast your way through deadly arenas. I'm thinking it looks kind of familiar to me from those Quake days of Quake and the Unreal eras, if you remember those. I'm sure you do. Teleport, jump, fly, and bounce in 100 merciless and fast-paced maps for your ultimate prize, your soul, and beer. It looks like a lot of fun. It's only $14.99, so go check that out. And then good old Stig wrote in about this one. This is Iron Harvest. It's a new quote-unquote diesel punk RTS. It's based on alternate history WW1, apparently some game called Scythe. Dynamic storyline and open sandbox style levels with a quote-unquote hint of XCOM. Okay, now you're starting to get my attention. The world is based on the Battle of Warsaw in 1920 and the broader Polish-Soviet War of 1919 to 1921. A very interesting period of history that not many people outside of Poland seem to know much about. So definitely worth keeping an eye on. And who knows, maybe you'll actually learn something. This one's currently in development. They're not expecting it until sometime in 2018. So I'll try to keep tabs on that, let you know more as we learn more about this game. And then finally, and here's the big news item. So go ahead, take out that Google Calendar. You're going to want to write this down. Saturday, December 17th. This is pretty much an all-day, all-night event. This is Dr. Cat's Legend of Gaming live stream. It's a free thing. Anybody can watch this. I'll, of course, have the links to it. And I'll keep trying to remind you as we get closer to this date of December 17th. This is actually a huge, huge thing for fans of this show. A lot of the people that have been guests on Matt Chat, upcoming guests, people that I wanted to get on the show but couldn't, they're going to actually be on this Legends of Gaming live stream. I'm talking John Romero, Lord British, but also some people that you haven't heard their names before, but I think you really want to hear more about their contributions. We got Robert Clardy of Synergistic Software, Scott Adams, not the cartoon guy, the adventure game guy. I actually interviewed him before. Go check that out. Richard Bartle of Muds. We got the Fat Man, one of my favorite people in the world. Just not even among game people, just really cool dude. I would go there just to hear the Fat Man, much less all the other stuff going on. I mean, this is just a huge thing. So December 17th, that's a Saturday. Hope that you can make it. I'll definitely be reminding you as we get closer. And then finally, as long as you have that calendar out, take a look at the rapidly shrinking period between now and the gift-giving season. It just so happens I have some great books for you. We've got Vintage Game consoles, and we've got Vintage Games 2.0. And I think this is just a great set. This one, you get all the information about the people and the devices, the hardware side of the industry, if you will. Really exciting stuff. And then this one I talk, and this one's with Bill. This one's just me. But in this one I talk about all the games and the influential games, what made them influential, all the crazy shenanigans and the personalities of people that made your favorite games. So I think you combine these two and you get a really good look at the history of the industry. Just a lot of fun, full color. You know I wrote them, I'm a little biased, but I think you'll really enjoy these. So there's still plenty of time. You can pick these up for yourself. Or if you have a friend that likes all this stuff but maybe doesn't tune into YouTube or just likes to read, you know, people like to do that. It's a fun hobby. You should try it sometime. just kidding, you guys. But go check these books out. I'd love to know what you think of them. All right, what about that ale of the week? Well, this week I decided I'd go back to ales. I'm going to drink a lot of sodas here. I haven't had much luck with those lately. This is the very local company out of St. Paul, Minnesota. You know, I could hop in a rowboat and go see them, I guess. This is Lake Monster Brewing, and it's called Empty Rowboat India Pale Ale. And they have a really cool can design on this. One of the best can designs I've seen. I'm really proud of these guys for coming up with such cool can design. We've got this sort of rowboat with squid-like, octopus-like tentacles coming out all around it. Little diving bell. Really creative. Let's see. Brewed for the hop head in all of us, our India Pale Ale is made with the finest American malts and a unique blend of classic and new American hops. Firm bitterness, intense citrus hop aroma, and enough flavor to knock you overboard. All right, so let's see. Alcohol is 6.9%, so not bad, about middle range, I would say. You think about a Budweiser might have 5, so a little stronger than that, but not heading into Crazyville. Anyway, let's get this open and see what it's all about. 80 IBUs, International Bitterness Units. So I'm still trying to learn how to calibrate that. But anyway, let's get this Empty Rowboat open and see what it's all about. All right, so I got some of this Empty Rowboat India Pale Ale here in the rather excellent drinking horn. I'm still loving that can. And notice they've got 3 or 4 other flavors. I have to check those out, see what kind of slogans they come up with for those. Well, no paint fumes this time. Actually smells really nice. You definitely smell the hops in this. Yeah, maybe a little bit of a citrusy aroma too. Just like they were saying there on their description. Smells really good. It's not overpowering. Doesn't smell pungent or anything like that. Just smells good. As soon as you sniff this, I think you want to taste it. I know I do. So let's give it a taste. Now, this one's a really strong flavor. It kind of goes sort of mid-range, and then suddenly it's kind of up in your sort of nasal cavities there. Not in a bad way though. Wow, just lots of flavors happening here. Not even, let me taste it again, not really even sure where to start. Yeah, really good taste on this, good finish. Kind of that sort of nutty, malty, hoppy flavors in there. A little bit on the bitter side, but just enough to sort of remind you of this IPA, right? But not in an unpleasant scenario by any means. Actually, I think this is quite nice. One of the more drinkable IPAs I've had in quite a while. I'll try it again here. This is great stuff. I don't know how you could really complain about this one. If you like the IPAs, sometimes people don't like those because they get a little carried away with the bitterness, and unless you just really love something really bitter, you won't like it. I think this one, it's just the right level of bitterness. What was it, 80 IBUs? I guess it must be a pretty good point to be at because it tastes good without being overpowering or sort of painful to drink. Actually, I'm going to try it one more time. Yeah, just really good stuff. Good flavor going down. Nice aftertaste on this. I'm really stunned. They're really doing a great job in St. Paul, Minnesota. It wouldn't surprise me if this gets a little wider distribution. It really deserves it. I'm going to go full 5 out of 5 drinking horns on this one. The Empty Rowboat India Pale Ale. Wow, I mean, they nailed the can design. Everything from the can to the body on this to the flavors, everything is just perfect. 5 out of 5 drinking horns. Really excited to try their other options. We'll see if they can keep this up. But I think you'll really be happy with this empty rowboat if you can find it in your area. All right, so let's wrap this up with a quotation. And I was looking for quotes about difficulties and challenges, and this one popped up. It's by Alexander Hamilton, and I like the quotation. Let me read this, and you can see what you think. In framing a government which is to be administered by men over men, the great difficulty lies in this. You must first enable the government to control the governed, and in the next place, oblige it to control itself. So mull that over and see you guys next week.
Hi everyone, I'm your best friend back in town again. Hey, what time is it? This is a test of the emergency broadcast system. This is a test of the emergency broadcast system. This is a test. This is a test.
Dear enemy, may the Lord hate you and all your kind, may you be turned orange in hue, and may your head fall off at an awkward moment.